Prendiville Show on Twitter @NeilRedFM.
And you can pick up the phone on 1-850-104-106. So just starting with that, we've got a couple of dates up in the air. The 19th for travel and potentially the 23rd, although I'm not 100% sure, for indoor hospitality and what have you. And I'll come back to that again, and your thoughts are welcome on it. But a man who's across this, of course, particularly, not just the air and travel aspect of it, but right across all of the COVID movement stories over the past year and a half, is Eoghan Corry from Air and Travel magazine, and he joins me by phone. He's always very willing to come on air even at short notice. So Eoghan, good morning to you. This cert that we're talking about, you know, the COVID certificate that's been posted today, that doubles up as access to hospitality and travel. It's the same one, isn't it?
Well, that's the indication, Neil. Good morning, Neil.
Morning.
It's really fitted out for travel when you've got something and the technology is awesome. When you've got something that into so much investment and time and everything has gone into, it makes sense for it to be extended to other areas. A lot of European countries are doing that. The problem, of course, is that not everybody will have one for the indoor hospitality, but it's basically, if you've got something as awesome as this, why not use it for indoor hospitality as well?
So that's what they're doing. It's access all areas to travel, to go indoors as well at the same time. And from Monday, of course, that will be the case. People can fly anywhere in Europe?
Anywhere in Europe, everybody in Europe, every country in Europe has 21 days to issue them, but every country in Europe has signed up for it since the 1st, which is Friday, not of last week, but of the week before. And people have been arriving in Ireland with the QR code, with their digital COVID certificate. It caused a bit of scratching of heads because Irish immigration didn't know what to do with it when they saw it. They really weren't up and fitted for it, but people have been arriving with it because other countries have already issued it. Irish people have been travelling with their ordinary paper certificate as well. That's not actually legally enacted.
That's the little card that you get.
The little card you get, it says a batch number and it says where you got it and what type. So other countries have been accepting that, and the airlines have been accepting that. So what will change on Monday is all of that will be, instead of bits of paper, it'll be a QR code either on your phone or printed out. It's arriving. It started arriving yesterday. Batches of them arriving this morning, and the idea is that code can be read by somebody at an airline airline gate or immigration. They're the two places they look for it, by the way. The gate as you're boarding the aircraft, and immigration when you arrive in the other country.
When you're going out, do they scan it or just physically look at it?
Scan it. They scan it. It's important. A couple of really important things for fraud is that it bears. It's the same person that's on the passport. You would still require your passport. I know that sounds obvious, but people have already turned up thinking that the QR code was their passport in other countries. You need your passport, your boarding card, and this.
But this is what interests me. There's no photograph on this cert, so I could borrow yours, couldn't I?
But you would have to have your name, your date of birth, and all of those sort of details on it.
So is my name and date of birth and all that on the digital travel pass?
Yes, indeed. Of course.
Okay.
The analogy would be with a boarding card. You know, you don't have a photograph on a boarding card except in those airports like Heathrow, where take photograph at security going from one area to another. But you have a passport, which is your identity, your boarding card, which is your right to get on the aircraft. And this third thing is your QR code. Now, it's not necessary to travel. This is important as well. It's just your passport, or I shouldn't use that word, but your right to travel without restrictions, without quarantine, and without having a test.
Yes.
If you don't have if you haven't been fully vaccinated, or even if you don't have the QR code, you will still need that antigen test going out and PCR test to determine.
So you will be scanned, or at least your travel cert will be scanned at an airport, like a boarding pass. So
it's your medical details to go with your boarding pass and your passport.
Yeah. So
the joy of this is, like, it can be uploaded. If you check in Ryanair, it says upload your QR code. So up goes your QR code. You produce your boarding pass, your QR code from your phone at the gate, and then you press a little button at the top of the boarding pass and opens up this QR code, and then they scan that. All the people around the gate want to know is, are you clear to travel?
And that QR code, then, that means that if somebody gets a hard copy of it in the post, they can take a photograph of it, is it? Of the QR code?
Absolutely. And you can bring the piece of paper, take a photograph of it, and once the QR code is on your phone and you can locate it at the gate, you won't need anything printed out.
But all of the tourists that are coming in, you say they're already started to come in since earlier in the month. Yeah. Heather Humphreys has said that there'll only be random checks when they arrive at Irish airports. Is that because they'd have already been checked before they boarded an EU flight?
Absolutely. You're not getting on a flight unless you have this. If people slip through the system, and people have slipped through the system, the way that people deal with all security, be it passport fraud or whatever, is by if something shows up when you scan at immigration, something doesn't look right, they call you in for a secondary chat, and they also have randoms. They're actually, even at airport security, the alarm is just destined to set off after a certain period of time, just to keep people trained up.
So are people actually booking to come here, and are Irish people booking to go overseas?
Smaller numbers than would happen in other European countries. The European Eurocontrol, the aviation update, just arrived about 20 minutes ago. A lot of countries are around 66-65% of capacity, where they would be this time in 2019. We're still under 30%, or just around 30%. Expect that to move up as we get moving, because the last 2 weeks in July, you can tell. You can look into your Ryanair flights and you can get to Germany for a fiver. That doesn't happen in July. You can tell that people aren't booking. It was interesting, Neil, that there was a little bit, surge is too strong a word, but it's coming off a very low base. A little bit of an interest in booking in May when July the 19th was mentioned. And then all the words from, the politicians were trying to downplay this. Eamon Ryan talked about 10-hour queues in airports, dampened the enthusiasm a little bit in June. I suspect it'll work, like most things in Ireland work, not by the aviation companies, although the airlines, the fares that Ryanair are throwing into the market are amazing. It won't go by public health policy. It'll actually go by word of mouth. That's how traditionally Ireland works. The first people going out next week in July will come back and say, well, it's different, because it's also like all our first flights. We're going to have to do it masked. We have this extra thing of the QR code to go through. So it's unfamiliar to us. And once people start coming back and saying, this is how it works, the numbers will start moving. The numbers for September, October are much higher, because most people are giving us a little bit of time.
A little bit of breathing space, yeah. What about the rest of the world then? Because we are only talking about within the European Union. When will international transatlantic open and everything else, do you think?
And this is European Union only, and a little bit of confusion caused by people talking about the emergency brake system, which means that a country could be cut off at short notice. Only applies outside the European Union. That would only apply in our case to places like Turkey and Morocco. Outside the European Union, lots of countries want to try and do a deal that is similar to the COVID certificate. Britain has already done that. If any of your listeners are based in the north, the NHS COVID card, isn't technically valid within the European Union, but bilaterals with all the major countries like Spain, Portugal, mean that it's being treated as if it was. America is very important for Ireland, second biggest inbound market. Talk of a travel bubble. Talk about at the moment Irish people cannot travel to America. That's been discussed. That ban being lifted, and there's talk that already vaccinated Americans are arriving here. They need a PCR test before they come. If that restriction is lifted, that would be a big boost. But we don't have any guidance on whether that's going to be done. But I would expect the pressure, once you're allowing fully vaccinated Germans in, why not Americans as well? Fully vaccinated
But
Americans.
This is down to Biden, is it?
It was happening bilaterally, independent of the administration. But we've a very pro-Irish president, the most pro-Irish president we've had in 60 years. So he would certainly be in a position to intervene and say, let's get the Irish thing set up. But from our side, we've got to be certain that we're going to let vaccinated Americans in without the sort of judgment that went on, for instance, last summer. And the real the key to this is that vaccinated Americans are the type that come to America, have come to Ireland. They're of the age cohort, and they are very important in terms of spend. It's the unlocking of Irish tourism will be vaccinated Americans arriving back. Big problem, though, is that Aer Lingus have already cancelled almost all their North American program. The only cities that we still have are Chicago, Boston, New York, the core cities that were there in our childhood, Neil. Yeah. All the Seattle's, Los Angeles, San Francisco's are all gone. And that's because we've dragged the heel and on transatlantic, and we have to. It works two ways. There's another complication going the other way, and that is that the Americans recognise Pfizer and Moderna, but they haven't recognised AstraZeneca vaccines yet. So even if you've been through the full course of AstraZeneca, you may still require, when America opens, an antigen test before travelling.
Okay, but they can come here fully vaccinated and with a PCR test, but we can't.
At the moment, they're required the PCR test and self-isolation. Everybody is still required the self-isolation as they arrive in Ireland.
I see. So PCR and self-isolation as well.
But the vaccination didn't exist in Irish legislation. I mean, people are saying, why do I have to do this fully vaccinated? People have been carted off to mandatory hotel quarantine fully vaccinated.
Okay, let's bring it on and see what happens with regards to. I am getting texts and people who are already receiving it in the post, so you're right in that regard. Listen, incidentally, I want to ask you, your Air and Travel magazine, people ask me, how can they subscribe to that?
It's at the moment it's just online, and first place to look will be the Facebook page.
Okay, appreciate it as always, Eoghan. Thanks for taking the call. Eoghan Corry.
Always a pleasure, Neil. Thank you very much.
Air and Travel magazine, follow him on Facebook. He's the go-to guy in that regard. Back after the break.
The Neil Prendiville Show.